Have you ever found yourself thinking, I just don't like my partner that much? Or wondering, is there any love left between us? When you stop and take stock of your relationship, does it feel underwhelming? Like the enjoyment and the fun is just gone?
Well, if you have, then you're not alone. So many couples have felt that too. And we've found ourselves in seasons like this as well. And the good news is this is not a label that you need to slap on your relationship, something that's like a doomed situation. This is actually just a flag to mark something that might need some more intentionality. And at any point in your relationship, you can choose to reset the enjoyment, the vibe, the culture that's going on within it with just some small practical steps. And we're going to dive into that today.
Honey, we need to chat.
Welcome back to another episode of Honey, We Need to Chat. I'm Blair. This is my wife, Amy.
Hello.
This podcast is all about communication in a relationship. In today's episode, it's going to be the kickstart for our relationship reset mini-series, which we're really excited about. We're going to be discussing how we fall into these rhythms of just not liking each other. Instead, focus on reintroducing the intentionality, the curiosity, the lightness to our relationships and a cultural reset.
Over the next few weeks, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this thought on how to reset your enjoyment of your relationship. And we want to challenge you to maybe use this as a little bit of a challenge, follow along and use this as a practical program to work through your relationship and implement some of these things as well as we go over the next few weeks.
And as you mentioned, this is something that you and I have done intentionally quite a few times as well. We find ourselves maybe in the friend zone too much, or we're just stressed and we're not actually in any zone. You know, we're just so disconnected from each other. So that cultural reset, which I like that terminology, because we've also spoken about, you know, envisioning where we want to be in 5 years in our relationship. That cultural reset helps us to realign with that vision as well. And are we on track of getting there?
Yeah, and is a normal and healthy part of relationships, an important part of relationships that's often overlooked. We've mentioned on the podcast many times that people do this all the time at work. They do this all the time in their professional world. They do it in other structures that we live in the world, other community structures, external structures. But for some reason, we don't think it's important, or it looks like a sign of weakness when you do it in relationship. And that's just not true. So definitely something that's really important to keep things fresh. And we're going to dive into what that might look like in a relationship during this episode. And we're also going to get really practical at the end. So stick around till the end to get some practical tips on resetting this for yourself. So what does it mean to like your partner? We talk a lot on this podcast about love, and that's really important in relationships, obviously. But love is a commitment and it's an action more than a feeling. Liking your partner is more about the vibe and the feeling that goes along with that. And there are times in your life where you may not like your partner or may not feel like you're enjoying your relationship, and that's normal. But we're going to look at what we can do to make that enjoyment more active and more alive. So liking each other is about the vibe. It's about the tone. It's about the energy going on. It's not about the commitment. That's what love is. It's not about the action. That's what love is. It's about how you're feeling and how you're enjoying your relationship. And most people don't talk about this element that much.
Yeah. Well, I think we automatically think it's like, oh, no, I love them. And it means everything. Like everything's encapsulated in that love. It's not true. Like, you know, the fun and the enjoyment of the relationship can also dwindle. The love doesn't have to change. It's like, man, I just, you know, where's the fun gone? You know, where is the adventure or the excitement around our relationship as well? Where's that gone?
And the other element of that is as well that we sometimes judge where our love is at based on how our like is or our enjoyment is. And when we mesh those things together or we confuse those things, we can start to convince ourselves that we don't love each other anymore. And that's where it's really important to define these differently. And so we're going to look at a few reasons why you might stop liking each other in relationships. There's so many reasons, but here are a few. Emotional fatigue, especially, you know, the further into a relationship you get, and especially if you're parents, emotional fatigue happens. Lots of stuff going on. You just don't seem to have the same energy and strength and focus to put towards your relationship as you did at the beginning. A lot of the stuff we talk about on the podcast, like scorekeeping, the contempt, or the 4 horsemen, all of those sorts of behaviors and patterns that you can find yourself in can build into a trap of not enjoying each other anymore. Getting stuck in that roommate friend zone type season, which we've talked about on here, and we actually have a resource on our website for that as well. Really common, again, when real life comes in, work, family, kids, all of the obligations that happen with real life, it's easy to find yourself more in a roommate vibe or more in a friend zone vibe where the romance or the enjoyment isn't really alive anymore. Low play, low curiosity, finding yourself not prioritizing time to enjoy, like go out and have dates, play, have fun, be light, or finding yourself not in a pattern of being curious with each other where you're learning more about each other. You're just stagnant in that space and you don't feel like there's anything left to learn.
I remember sometimes when we were tired, we'd go on a date night or something and the conversation was so dull because we didn't know what to ask.
Yeah.
And there's this level of, I already know everything about you. And what we had to discover actually was, no, we didn't, because I didn't know what you did that day. I didn't know what you were thinking about that morning. And we really had to work on, and this became some of our date nights, we really had to work on questions we could ask to help each other explore that, because especially if you're emotionally or just fatigue, like those questions are hard to do. And yeah, there's a lot of more that I've learned about you from learning more about your day. So I'm learning more about you every time, and you're always learning. You're always growing. So there's always something for me to learn.
Yeah. I think when you're at the beginning, there's so many big, easy, obvious things to learn. Like you don't know how many siblings they have. You don't know where they've lived. Those sorts of questions are really easy. And so the more you get to know each other, the less there is to learn in terms of those big details. But you're right. We're always developing and changing. And it's more about shifting what learning looks like and recognizing where the change and growth is happening still. And we have the best conversations when we're just chatting and, but it's so easy to fall into default and not explore those things. And the last one I've got on this list is when both or one person is showing up in a way that's functional, but it's not fun. So it's all about business. It's all about the day-to-day. And we, again, have had moments where we'll go on a date night and all we can talk about is what's happening with the kids or what we need to do or work or like all this stuff that's just day-to-day functional.
And that's
enjoying.
okay. Yeah. And that's okay. Like those times are okay. It's not saying like, oh, now your date night's ruined. That's not okay. Like the date nights are the quality time that you have together. But it's just when you find yourself in that pattern, when you find yourself in that rhythm of, again, just it's where you're at. You're not enjoying this stage like that.
Doesn't feel fresh.
Doesn't feel fresh.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel light.
Yeah. And so it's easy to find yourself for whatever reason. It could be something we've listed or something else in a place where you're like, I don't really enjoy time with my partner. I don't really enjoy my partner. And have that leak into how you feel about other things. And one of the common things, which is one of the reasons we're having this conversation today, is we project that onto our partner. Like our partner is no longer exciting to us, or there's something wrong with our partner. Sometimes it's not that our partner is hard to like. It's actually that everything around them is feeling too heavy. And I think that's really important. Or everything around you is feeling too heavy and you're projecting that. And that's really true for me. Like a lot of the times that I'm struggling to enjoy Blair or to reflect back the energy that he's giving me, it's because I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, like sad, I'm like distracted, I'm busy, I'm tired, all of these things. And that actually impacts my read of what he's putting out there. So my irritated responses, these, he's got these in his
I'm shocked.
This morning, he was getting ready for this episode was this. My focus or my attitude is just distracted. I'm tired, I'm annoyed, I'm irritated, and I project that out there. And I stop seeing what's fun or good, and I just start seeing extra stimulation or extra overwhelm. And I can't appreciate that. And that's valid. Like it's not invalid that I'm overwhelmed. But what is invalid is for me to then be like, I just don't like Blair anymore. Like that's not the picture. That's not accurate for what's going on. It's actually my stuff that I'm projecting on you.
Yes, and sometimes not at the same time. I saw this reel last night that it was talking about how your partner like knows how to push all your buttons and irritates you and stuff like that. And it's a fun thing. But there's times where it's just like, don't do that, man. And that's my struggle. Like I joke around a lot. I like to push your buttons and muck around, but I need to learn my moments of doing that.
And that comes from communication. So what is really important when you're finding yourself in a place like this is to be asking, what energy am I bringing to the room? Like, what am I bringing to the table? Instead of finding yourself in this position where you're like, oh, my partner this, my partner that, or I just don't like them anymore. What energy are you bringing? Because that can be your first indication of where things are going wrong. And I have a little picture to explain this, and it just came to mind while I was preparing the episode. So imagine you're overstimulated, you're stressed, you're totally maxed out, you're like overwhelmed in every way. You've had a long, horrible day. and your kids are being really loud and silly and having a lot of fun around you. Like any parent recognizes
this. Is last night.
Yeah, last night. Yeah. Exactly this. And they're having fun. They're not doing anything wrong.
They're being kids.
They're being kids. They're having fun, and they're just laughing loudly, wrestling, all the stuff that when you're removed from your stress would be awesome. So often in that situation, what happens for me is I snap, or I get really nitpicky, or I get really frustrated, and I'm like, stop all of this stuff. And every now and then I'll like kind of be taken out of myself and be like, what? They're not doing anything wrong. Like I'm trying to stop their fun and their enjoyment of this situation because I'm stressed right now.
That was, again, last night, right? Like it was both of us. I think it was mainly me. I was just so tired at the dinner table, and they were just like, you know, chatting and just laughing together. And like around the dinner table is a special time as a family because you just connect so well. And our response was just, guys, can you be quiet?
Just
be
a
quiet.
bit more quiet.
Be like, all right, no talking now. It's like, and then afterwards, I'm like, why would I do that? Like, I don't want to no talking at the dinner table. Like, that's a special bonding time. But I was so tired, which then led to me being so overwhelmed. And again, a big thing from that, though, is we learning what we need, right? So for me, I get very overstimulated with noise, and so I put my earplugs in, they're loops and they're called, and that helps me a lot to regulate the noise, and I can then actually be present more because it's reduced the amount of noise at the table. So but anyway, just to put that real life example there, like we literally struggled with this last night.
So to follow on with this, the picture of what that is, it's not because they've done anything wrong that we're struggling with it. What's happening is their light, fun, loud energy that they're bringing is clashing with our heavy energy or our stressed out energy or whatever we're bringing, and we're not regulating well, which is what you're talking about with the loops there. And so this is what happens in relationships as well. Sometimes your partner might be trying to connect. They might be trying to flirt, have fun, be light, engage in that way. And instead of meeting them there, we're shutting them down, or we're shutting it down, or we're shutting ourselves down. Not because what they're doing is wrong or you don't like them anymore. It's actually because your energy is distracting you and projecting on them. You're not matching them, and that mismatch or that contrast between the two can feel really confronting. And so when you're empty and you're stressed, it's really hard to recognize that because it takes being out of that moment, like you just said, after the fact that we're like, oh, hang on, they weren't really doing anything wrong. But at the time, it's really hard to draw yourself out of that feeling. And so that can become a pattern. And that's just a little example of what you may see playing out in a relationship. It might not be that there's something wrong with your partner. It might not be that there's something wrong with you two together. It might just be that what we're each individually bringing to the table is distracting us from the reality of connection. So learning to like your partner again and learning to enjoy your relationship again isn't about changing your partner. It might be more about lightening the load that you're carrying or helping yourself get a little bit of perspective around what's really going on and what's feeding into that. So we're going to explore a little bit about how we can reset this culture that might be playing out there for your relationship.
Yeah, but before we jump into that, I want to share a little bit about the awareness and fundraiser campaign that Amy and I are part of. It's called Man with a Pram. Man with a Pram is all about filling the gap with the health system on support for fathers in the perinatal period. So perinatal period is before birth and after birth. And as we experienced when we had our kids, Amy, there's a lot of external support for you in that time, right?
Yeah. All my appointments leading up to the birth, all my information about the birth, and then even after we had the baby, all of the information is directed at me as the mum.
And the follow-up.
And the follow-up is all directed at me, for weeks and months afterwards. Yeah.
And so for some of our births, kind of traumatic, and it left us in a position where Amy was getting the support. I wanted to be the best dad, the best partner I could be, but I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea how to support my family through these intense times, and I was just left feeling lost and under supported. And so that's the mission of Man with a Pram is to help support those health systems to make those changes to include fathers in that support for the perinatal period. And research shows that when dads are supported, the whole family is greater supported. And so we're going to be doing that on Father's Day weekend. We'll put the link in the bio here. You can donate to the cause via that link, or you can start up your own events as well. So you can just go on there, sign up, register your own location, bring the family along, and just get behind a dad and say, we got you back.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive into this culture reset within your relationship. So firstly, why do people fall into these patterns? We've talked about some of the reasons you might find yourself not enjoying your relationship anymore. But part of it is that as relationships develop, all couples find themselves falling into rhythms. And that's a normal part of relationship. As you settle into an everyday relationship that's long-term, you fall into a rhythm that works for your relationship. Now, the issue is if you're not intentional about choosing which rhythm you're falling into, you find yourself in an unspoken rhythm that you haven't chosen, and often one that you don't even want to be in. So that's where a lot of this dissatisfaction can come in. And we've discussed this on the podcast before with our unspoken contracts episodes. And it underlines a lot of the stuff that couples navigate, finding themselves in this rhythm, the mental load that you never chose. And we've seen this play out for us a lot as well. And you probably have too. So some of the rhythms you might see playing out is that we don't flirt anymore. Or we only talk when there's a problem, or fun requires money or a night off from the kids. So we can't have fun because we don't have either of those things. Or we're too tired or too busy to enjoy each other, or our relationship is a task. It's not a vibe anymore. So these kinds of rhythms you might find yourself falling into, and it impacts how you can enjoy your relationship, but you've fallen into it without being intentional. An analogy I have for this, I had a lot of analogies popping into my head when I was putting this episode together, is when you're learning to drive, right? When you're learning to drive, you are aware of every single move you have to make. You're very intense. You're very alert because you're not sure what to do and you're still learning. The other thing is you are always planning ahead of which way you need to go. I always would know what lane I wanted to be in so that I'd avoid the really difficult intersection coming up, like 2 kilometers down the road, way further away from me. But I wanted to be in that lane now because I knew it would be easier. So those sorts of things were just part of learning to drive. You start to figure out how to avoid the things that are difficult. You figure out where you're going before you get in the car, or you set your GPS before you're there. You know which direction you're going. You're more alert to that and more intentional with that because you aren't familiar with driving. Then as you get better at driving, you start to do it in default. You start to fall into this automatic muscle memory. And we call that in coaching subconscious competence, which is basically you're so competent that you're subconscious to it. You're not aware of every move you're making because you are so competent at driving. You don't have to be thinking about every lane you're in, everything you have to do within the car. And you can have stretches of driving where you all of a sudden kind of come to and you're like, oh, I don't even remember driving down that road. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's a part of mastering a skill. You want to move into that subconscious competence. But the issue is, if you were to move into this subconscious competence, you're driving on default, you're getting in your car, not really thinking about it, but you didn't know which direction you were going, or you hadn't set your GPS to kind of remind you every now and then which way you're going, you would find yourself just driving, even though you might be subconsciously driving, but you're driving directionless. You're driving in a place you don't want to be. You're not getting to the destination that you've chosen. And so just because you're subconsciously competent with driving doesn't mean you can take the intentionality of the direction you're going out of the picture. And I feel like that's the same with relationships. At the beginning, everything is new and exciting. We're learning everything. So we're very alert to how we're interacting. We're very alert to how our partner's responding to us, what they like, what they don't like. You're feeling out all of that stuff. It's a conscious decision to be making these choices. And as we get to know each other, we fall into that subconscious competence of relationship where I no longer have to think about how you'll react to things. I just know Blair reacts this way to these things. I can kind of project, this is what the day is going to look like if this, and this happen. I know these things about you, like we said earlier. I've learned so much about you. I don't have to learn, what does Blair think about this? What music does he like? What movies does he like? What's his past experience with his family? I know these things. But if we are not setting a direction for that subconscious competence in relationship, we will find ourselves wandering in an area we don't want to be. We'll find ourselves going in a direction we don't want to be. Or I like the GPS analogy too, because sometimes it's that we've set a direction and we're really good at that. Sometimes some people aren't as good at just looking at the map before they get in the car and knowing where they're going. They need something along the way to kind of break into that subconsciousness and be like, oh, turn left here. Because otherwise they forget, or there's a weakness there or a skill that's not super strong. And that might be the same with certain parts of relationship too. Just because you've had an intentional moment at the beginning doesn't mean everybody is fine to take their foot off the brake and just cruise. Some people need that regular thing that they've decided, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm going to implement this GPS to every now and then be like, please turn left, get into the left lane for the roundabout coming up, that sort of thing. And that's not a weakness either. That's actually a strength, that you're preparing for what you need in your relationship to keep you on track. But the point of this analogy is, if we were to not have our directions sorted, we would find ourselves in a place we don't want to be. If we do not choose the rhythms that we want to fall into in our subconscious competence of our relationship, we'll find ourselves functioning out of a rhythm that we don't want to function out of. And that might be a rhythm that means that we don't enjoy each other very much anymore.
Some of the cultural lies we absorb or take on, like just from these experiences, could be we just fell out of love, like that's the answer that we give ourselves, or we've grown too different. Another one is we just married the wrong person. These are all things that we've heard. Yeah. And this is like a big reason why we wanted to start this podcast, to speak against those things. But another one is we're on different paths now, or we've just lost the spark.
Yeah. These are things that you can, it's like the excuse or the reason that we slap on what we're experiencing. And it's like, we've just fallen out of love, or we married the wrong person, instead of exploring what is going on to have gotten us to that point. And so there are ways of saying this isn't working anymore. Something must be wrong with us. It explains that to some extent, and it leads us to believing that there's something wrong about the equation of us. So you plus me equals this, and something's off about that. Not that there's something off about the rhythms that we've got going on, or the culture we've got going on in the relationship. It must be that there's something wrong with you plus me.
Yeah.
But here are some of the hard truths that combat these lies that we might be experiencing. We've just lost the spark. That lie is most couples don't fall out of love. You don't just suddenly fall out of love. Like we spoke about earlier, love is actually an action as well. It's part of a commitment and an action and a doing. So you don't fall out of love. You fall into default, and love is a choice. So you don't just fall out of that. If you've fallen out of love, you're probably falling into a rhythm. That means you're not enjoying each other very much. But that lie that, we've just fallen out of love, is a really tricky one, because it kind of removes any ownership. It removes any curiosity. It just closes that off and puts a tag over it, like, we've fallen out of love.
And this is just the perfect spot to, again, just to remind you of our little intro that we usually do. We didn't do today, but we believe that when communication dies, bad things happen. And you can use that lens for all of these things that you're speaking to. It's like, if you spoke through that, if you were equipped with the tools to communicate through that season or whatever that is, no matter how long it is, things won't die. And so, that's what we want to be encouraging you to, is have these conversations. And again, there's a lot of resources on our website to help navigate those conversations.
Yeah. So you don't just fall out of love, you fall into a rhythm, you fall into a default, you fall into a pattern that's not helpful. But the amazing thing is that rhythms change. Like, rhythms can change, patterns can change, habits can change, and your connection can be reset, which is what we're working on today. The other lie, we've grown too different, is you do not have to be the same to feel connected. And this is really important. And we've spoken about this with our relationship. We are very different, especially at the beginning. We were so different. And that can cause some difficulties.
And it did cause difficulties. And it still does cause difficulties. But it's become our biggest strength in our relationship, is like, because again, I can't have a job where you're not a part of now. I need your strengths with me, right? I don't do parenting nowhere near as well if it was just my way of parenting. Like, what you bring to that, it just amplifies our joint parenting. Like, it's amazing.
It's a team. Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to feel the same to feel connected. Actually, being different is a strength. When it's fostered well, it's a strength. And curiosity is more important than compatibility or being the same, having the same interests. Being curious about each other and exploring that and turning that into a strength is actually so beautiful. And then the lie, I just married the wrong person. Actually, I think it was last week I mentioned this in the episode as well. My hot take is, I don't think there is a right person. There is not just one person that's the right person, but there are destructive patterns that can happen within a relationship, within two people, that might find yourself down the track disconnected, not working well. So any couple can find themselves disconnected down the track. Doesn't matter who they are. Destructive patterns can lead any couple, regardless of how compatible or how perfect the situation was around them when they got together, in a disconnected state down the track if it's not chosen intentionally and those rhythms are intentionally led into. So it doesn't matter how right they seem, if you don't interrupt one of those destructive patterns, you'll also then repeat it with somebody else. I think that's part of this lie as well, as I marry the wrong person also indicates, oh, there's a right person. And with the right person, it'll be easy. Or with the right person, these things wouldn't exist. And the reality is, regardless of who you're with, if you're not intentionally choosing these patterns and choosing the strengthening of yourself and of your relationship, you'll find yourself in the same destructive patterns with somebody else as well, because it's about the culture that you're building within the relationship. We're on different paths now. I've heard this one as well, like we're going different directions. And I find this is such an interesting one because you're actually a team. And like you said, we worked really well together now. So that wasn't something that started at the beginning. We were different people and we've kind of meshed into this team. It doesn't mean that we no longer are individuals with value and strengths on our own. And we both have big strengths on our own. But there's something so cool about how we've built this new, it's almost like we're a new entity between, like with the two of us.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful team and has its own direction.
And it's important too. Like we both have our different challenges that we're working on individually. Like your challenges are different to mine. There's some that are similar, but the challenges are different. So it's like, well, you can support me in my challenge, but it's still my challenge. So I've still got my things I've got to focus on and work on too.
And the same thing goes for directions, right? Like we're working together on stuff, but we each have different like things we're working towards, different dreams, goals, directions that we're working towards. And we have a beautiful team element that can support each other in that.
Yeah.
And there've been times where one of us hasn't really understood the direction of the other person. Like that's happened before.
Yeah.
But like it's been like, that's not really I don't really get that, but cool. Like me with musical theater, for example, like that's just it's not really part of your world. Like you haven't.
It is in supporting you. Like that's
now
it
is. Yeah. So it's something that we've built and you're like, I don't really want to be in that and I don't really get it, but I love supporting you in that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we're so different that we can't be together. It's actually find the culture that supports it.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, it's not that expectation that I do get it. It's like I genuinely don't. Like I enjoy going to watch it and I definitely enjoy seeing you in it, but that's the extent of my enjoyment.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't have this like itch of like, I want to be in that. I want to do that with Amy. It's like, no, I'm doing all these other things with Amy. That's sweet. I don't think I need to be a part of that. Because these are legit conversations that we had too.
So many times.
Of like, and I was wrestling with that. I'm like, should I want to do theater with you? Like, is that something that I should be doing? And then we've just come up to the realization, nope.
Yeah.
That's fine.
At this stage, no.
Yeah.
But so if you've lost a sense of shared direction because you're so individual, I can almost guarantee a lot of that comes down to disconnection within your relationship. Not because you're going such different directions that you can't work together. It probably mostly comes down to there's a disconnection in how you're interacting. So you're not discussing and like workshopping these things with each other and getting excited with each other. And you can reset and you can recalibrate and kind of redirect which way you're going. You can come back together and workshop those things together and support each other. And when you're in a committed relationship, you're committing to blending that down the tracks. You can reset that and find a way that works in empowering and enriching you both without it being something that makes you feel more disconnected. We're too busy or we're too tired to enjoy each other. That's true. Like life is really hard and things shift in terms of your capacity, your energy, your time. And especially once you've got kids or you're working full time, those kinds of things shift. It's not going to be the same as the beginning, but being too tired or too busy to enjoy each other is, I think, the key thing here is you can be creative. And we've talked about this so many times. It took us a little while, I think, to wrap our heads around it, but you can do an at-home date night.
So
find a way.
The question is like, all right, if you're in that place, what can you do about it? If I'm too tired, like, all right, let's use an example, right? You know, we're coming out of this more with our toddler where it was this really tough sleeping time and what you needed was sleep. So I was like, all right, well, what do we need to do? I really struggle at night times. Like I struggle to go back to sleep if I'm woken up. But what you needed in that time was on a weekend, I'll take him, I'll sleep in there, I'll do what we need to do so you can actually get the rest that you need. Now we're both working on that. Or it's like, all right, you now need to go have a nap because you've been up, you know, putting those things in place. If I'm too tired, what do I need to do to get energy? Is it to go out and do something fun? Is that going to give me more energy? So putting those things in place. The answer, in my opinion, can't be, I'm just too tired. The answer can be, more along the lines of, I'm tired right now. This is what I need. And then we can work on that, right? Like, I need this so I can do that. Not that's the answer. That's the end of it.
It's a blanket statement.
That's something that I'm now identifying that I need to work through so I can get through that. And there's always something that you can do. Yeah.
That's the key here is there's hundreds of little micro decisions every single day that we make that build into our day. And in those, there's lots of opportunities for little connections, regardless of if it's a big, elaborate date or it's just a little moment, a little hug, a little like question to each other, a little curiosity, a coffee sitting together, like whatever works for you. There's a way that it works for you. Yeah.
If the question is, I'm too tired, okay, it's like, all right, sweet. Something so simple you can do. And it's like once off, when the kids go to bed, we've done this before, order Uber Eats. That's your date night. And you're going to sit down and you're just going to reflect. You don't have to worry about meals. You don't have to worry about anything else. Like have a treat night, like relax, help take other decisions off our mind. Kids are in bed. We can relax now and we've taken that decision off our plate. So now I can have these conversations. So something so simple, so easy. Do what needs to be done so you can work on the things that are important.
If you keep doing things exactly the same way and coming up with exactly the same excuse, nothing will change. But choosing little moments to make a change can be a huge difference, like a huge difference. And it's easy to say we're too tired and then you just don't even try.
There's a million excuses that have come to our heads when we've even had that idea, right? But so for us, it'd be like, oh, finances are too tight. We can't afford Uber Eats or something.
Or don't even do Uber Eats. Like just be like, oh, we're going to make toasties, but we're going to sit and eat them after the kids are in bed. Or people will be like, the kids are up too late, so we can't do that. Cool. Have a hot chocolate together when the kids are in bed.
Or for this one night, put the kids in front of the TV. Yeah, they might be still up. But like put a movie on, you guys at the dining room table or something, and then have that, like it's, Yeah.
Just question yourself if that's becoming a kind of like an excuse or a cutoff thing, like I'm too tired, there's no time. Ask yourself, where is there time? Because there's always 24 hours in a day. So where is that time going? Or where is that energy going? And where can I shift something? Because I reckon you'll come up with an answer for yourself. Obviously, we could talk about this for a really long time. Maybe we need to do it.
Again, this is something that we're so passionate about this because we've gone through this and we wish we put in these habits and we learned these things earlier on in our relationship. And it's so like, it's so worth it. It's so rewarding. It's so rich and powerful and encouraging and strong to do these things. As you can tell, we're passionate about it.
Yeah. And we always find ourselves having to remind ourselves as well.
Like, we're continually working on all these things.
Last night I was like, we should do that again. All right. So another lie. We'd be fine if my partner would just change. It's basically, they are the reason that this is happening. And I'm going to put this disclaimer in because I feel like it's necessary all the time. I'm not talking about abusive dynamics and manipulative relationships. That's not, I'm setting that aside because that is a different thing. And that's something that needs professional help. And we are not professionals. Setting that aside, so often people will, including myself, I'll do this all the time where I'm like, it's because of this thing that Blair's done. And the reality is that's not the reality a lot of the time. Like that's a really easy thing to fall into. And it's easy for a number of reasons. One is it releases us from any ownership over decisions and culture. And that can be, it's a lot easier to be released from that than to actually have to take the energy to think about what we're bringing to the table in this. But the reality is one person can shift the energy within a home. And I've seen this happen. One choice of an individual can bring an energy shift to your home, to your relationship. It doesn't mean that one person has to carry that forever. But if you're wanting change and you're like, it would be so much better if this person just changed this, this, and this, you can choose moments of shifting your energy, your tone, the way you're coming to the table that will bring about and implement the change across your family and across your relationship. And if you're not doing that and you're waiting for your partner to do that, then you're kind of expecting them to do something you're not willing to do.
We've been in conversations where one partner's testing to see if the other person will change or testing to see if they will take initiative and stuff. We just don't like that. It's like if you've been challenged with something, just do it. Just take the lead and just be like, cool, this is something that I'm passionate about. This is something I want to work on. Let's do this together. Just do that. Don't play the games.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be just changing your tone, like changing it to a light, fun tone, a playful tone. It's like softening your face. This is so important for me because I often walk around like this. And sometimes if I just like open my eyes a bit more, It's so much
creepy,
better.
Yeah.
And actually, even like the other day, I can't even remember what we were talking about, something to do with work or something. And just all of a sudden I was like, I should just sit on Blair's lap. And so I did. And like, it's a small little thing.
I didn't know that was a thought process for you.
Yeah, it was. I was just like, I kind of was tired too. So I was standing and I was like, I want to sit down. So anyway, it's just a small thing, but it could have been, and it wasn't, I don't think we were arguing. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
I was at my work desk.
Yeah. But like, that's like a surprising random little thing. Those little things, it can feel like such a huge deal. If you're not in a good headspace or you're not in a good culture, it can be, and I'm going to say it's pride. Like a lot of it is pride. It's like, I'm not going to go hug my husband. He's annoying me. What's
funny is with you just sitting on my lap, it's so tiny. I still remember it.
Yeah.
It was the other day.
Yeah.
Like it stands out, you know.
Because it's not a common thing.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it shifts the energy and it was nice. We just chatted. So yeah, if you're waiting for your partner to change, I think that's a red flag. And you need to question what you can bring to the table and what you can implement, because we have the power to bring change. Another lie that some people say is we'll have fun when things calm down, or we'll have fun when the kids are older or the kids are sleeping. We'll go do more things like that. And I think we understand that life shifts when you have kids or when chaos is happening, and there needs to be things that do change, and you need to put things in place that help you survive. But the fear that I have with that is that it's harder and harder and harder to come back to a light, fun, enjoying dynamic within your relationship the longer that it's gone. And I think a lot of people fall into this thought that, you know, we'll have fun again when our kids are out of the home, or we'll have fun again when our kids are teenagers, or whatever stage you're like holding it off for. That stage brings its own complications. And if you're not implementing these patterns that help you be creative and flexible and enjoy each other in every stage, you're going to have the same issue down the track, because you're going to have to implement something flexible there to work around the difficulties that season brings. So it's it's again kind of shifting that responsibility or that ownership, because it's a heavy feeling thing to have to think about what to do. But it's a fake shift of that, because the reality is it's just going to get harder as time goes on. Another thing I've heard is we're working on it, but nothing's changing. Like we're trying really hard and nothing's changing. Like I've tried to enjoy my partner and nothing's changing. And I think this is an interesting one too, because you can work really, really hard. I'm doing my little bunny ears right now. And it can be hard work. But if you're doing the same thing over and over and you're not adjusting how you're going about working on this thing, and then you're just saying, well, I'm trying really hard and it's not changing, then I think you need to assess that. Trying to do the same thing over and over, expecting to get a different result, is the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Like actually. So if you're saying you're working really hard and nothing's changing, you need to be flexible and change that up.
As well, and we say this a lot, get professional help to work through those 100%. Things as well. We've got it, and it wasn't like this end result, like dramatic, you know, moment of like, oh, if we don't, you know, we're about to end our relationship. It was none of that. It was actually we couldn't navigate through stuff, personal stuff. And we needed help to do that. We still loved each other. We still cared and were committed to each other. There was no question on this is the last resort. This is just something that we couldn't work through. And we got that professional help to do that. And we always go back to, we always share about how we invest so much into our sport, our hobbies, our career. With external help, we get in those areas. So why don't we do it for the most important relationships of our lives? Yeah, maybe that's that GPS example. Like maybe if you've been working hard and you're not getting to the place you want to get to, maybe this is an area you need some external process or person speaking in to remind you, implementing a different thing to remind you along the way, to keep you on track along the way. And I'm actually going to read what I wrote about this because I liked it. That makes sense. The wording of it, I was like, this is important. So I'm just going to read it straight from the thing. So working on your relationship takes creativity, patience, and flexibility. You're growing and your tools need to grow with you. Not every solution is going to work forever. And small wins matter, so you need to be celebrating them along the way and adjust as you need to. So working on your relationship takes creativity. You need to think creatively. You can't just be like, I'm working on my relationship by talking to my partner every day in the same exact tone and the same exact questions, the same exact everything. It needs to be creative. You need to be able to think outside the box. What is happening? What can we do instead? It takes patience, because implementing change takes patience in every area. Like you just said, sport, business, everything. It's not something that all of a sudden you choose to do something and be intentional and suddenly everything's fine. It takes patience and work, and you need to be able to sit through that, not because it's like you need to be able to do this. It's actually for the best result.
And that's every strong couple you've ever seen has had patience with that process along the way. And it takes flexibility because who you were at the beginning of your relationship is not who you are now. And the circumstances around you guys at the beginning of your relationship are not the circumstances you have around you now. So if you stay rigid, and we spoke about that as well the other day on the episode, being rigid is not future-proofed. Like that kind of love that's rigid, you decided on it once and that's how it's going to be, is actually fragile because it's not flexible to adjust as you need. So you need to be able to be creative, patient, and flexible when you're working on your relationship. And the other really important thing is, I think we've got in this, and this is really common in coaching, you have in your head this end result that when we get to that end result, we're going to celebrate. So people will be like, I've been working hard and nothing's changed. And I think a lot of the time it's because we're projecting this end result that we're working towards, and that hasn't happened yet. So nothing has changed. But the reality is you have to celebrate the small wins along the way. So you can say nothing's changed, but if, like I sat on your lap the other day, I could have not sat on your lap, but I did. And then it was we kept chatting, but it was a nice little moment. And it stood out to you and it stood out to me. And then we moved on and went on about our day. That could be easy to say nothing changed, but it actually did. There was a little moment of connection. So we celebrate that moment of connection.
This is building on building.
Because celebrating your small wins along the way help you continue to work towards the big wins. So if you're thinking you're working hard and nothing's changing, think creatively, think with patience, grace for yourself as well, because it is a learning process, and think with flexibility and celebrate the things you are seeing adjusting. The last one I'm going to talk about, we've got more here, but I'm just going to cut through them because there's so many, but we're just not fun anymore. Like we just don't have fun anymore. We're not fun anymore. When you fall into patterns as a relationship, as we've said, normal life, there's just real heavy, regular, reoccurring things that you need to deal with. And it is easy to have the lightness that maybe happened in your 20s when you weren't full-time working and you didn't have kids and you didn't own a house and you didn't blah, blah, blah. The lightness is harder to come by because you do have more obligations. You do have more responsibilities. That's fine. Like that's a normal part of life. But being light and fun, it actually takes risk. And that's kind of that pride piece that I talked about earlier. And I think the older you get, the harder this is. If you're wanting to be light and fun, it actually takes risk. Like you have to be willing to be vulnerable and put yourself out there and be a bit silly and be a bit fun and not take things so seriously. And so you might think we're just not fun anymore, but I wonder if it's more you're not taking risk with each other. Risk in a healthy, creative way. It's a bit awkward, especially if you're in this pattern where you haven't had fun for a while and you're like, oh, we're just not fun anymore. Have you tried? It might be a bit awkward, but with a great reward, and it might be a bit vulnerable, a bit risky feeling to just have fun suddenly, or be a bit flirty, or suggest something different, or put yourselves out there. But it's for the best reward ever. And joy requires vulnerability. And that vulnerability is where connection grows. So if you're finding yourselves not fun and not enjoying each other, you probably aren't finding yourselves very vulnerable with each other. And that's probably not a culture that has been fostered. Vulnerability can start by one person choosing to show vulnerability and start bringing that in, like we talked about earlier. Those little moments of bringing in, shifting that culture, shifting that tone and that energy between you to bring that lightness back in. So to wrap up this section, we've spoken about all these kind of rules or lies that people so easily fall into. The world kind of sells us, I guess, as easy tags to strap onto these relationships. But then some of the realities that sit below that. So this is a little reflection to follow this section. Like maybe this week, just assess what might be one of our patterns or one of these rules or one of these lies that we're finding ourselves trapped in that we've listed, or something else that comes to your mind. What might be one rhythm and one pattern, this unspoken rule that we're playing out in our relationship, and can we let go of that this week? Can we bring in lightness to that space this week? So we've spoken about how people might find themselves here. We've spoken about the lies and then the kind of truths that back that up. Let's get really practical about how do you get to that space? You've recognized what might be playing out for you. You might be aware of the reality of it. And how do we now bridge that gap and go from that place to a vulnerable, more light, fun, enjoyable space? And we always talk about this on the podcast. The secret weapon is curiosity.
Having an attitude of curiosity.
Curiosity. We talk about this all the time. Curiosity
killed the cat.
Killed the cat. That's not. No. Curiosity healed the cat.
Oh, healed the cat. Yes.
Yeah. It's so simple and it's so easy to forget, but it is such a game changer. And I have looked up a few reasons why curiosity really, really helps physically and emotionally within a relationship. So curiosity is one of the fastest ways to bring someone or something back to life. All of a sudden, you've had this dry spell within your relationship. All of a sudden, showing some curiosity can bring your partner back into focus, can bring your partner, it feels like your love for your partner, your enjoyment for your partner, your interest in your partner comes back to life. It can reignite sparks within your relationship because all of a sudden there's newness and freshness going on and exploring of each other. So Sam and Liv spoke about this a few weeks back on our podcast as well from Silly Stories for Kids. They talked about becoming students of each other and how important that is. We've got this intentionality that we implement in business. We got this intentionality we implement in insert blank here, whatever it is that you've got that you put effort into. Let's also put that into our relationships. Let's become students of each other and actually study each other, be curious about each other, and students of yourselves, be curious about yourselves and what's going on. So here's some of the real power of curiosity within a relationship. It softens your heart when you're curious. It helps you to lower your judgment. So you immediately are removing that judgment piece, and it creates more emotional safety for both of you. You're softer, they're softer. It softens your heart from that judgment. It actually shifts your nervous system into a more regulated state. We've spoken about that quite a bit as well. Being curious activates your prefrontal cortex instead of your threat system. So that fight, flight, or freeze. You coming into a difficult conversation, you're trying to understand something that's a recurring pattern. Having a curious approach to it helps you think with your big picture brain, rather than your fight, flight, or freeze brain. Helps your partner think with their big picture brain rather than a fight, flight, or freeze. So that means that you're able to think more clearly about what you're trying to say. You're able to communicate more clearly. You're able to dive into what's sitting beneath it rather than just like this, they're bringing something tough up. So being curious activates your prefrontal cortex, which calms your reactions and opens space for connection. It helps you see beneath the surface level behavior. So again, we've got these patterns we see. And like we said, we'd be better if my partner just changed this, or it's my partner's fault. Being curious helps you see below that surface level symptom that we struggle with, instead of it just being like, Blair always does this and it's annoying. Having curiosity helps you see, why does Blair do this? Like, why does Blair do this? What feeds into that? Why does it annoy me? What feeds into that? Why is this so triggering for me? Helps you see beneath the surface. You're no longer reacting to what they said. You're exploring why they said it. It builds emotional intelligence. Curiosity helps you access compassion and perspective towards yourself and your partner. And this is really important. It brings it kind of, some of these sayings that come into my brain, I'm like, that's not a saying. It equals the playing field, levels the playing field.
That's fine, isn't it? Yeah.
It levels the playing field a bit because it helps you be curious about your partner and yourself, and allows there to be an ownership piece on both sides rather than it being a finger pointing thing. And then that builds just safety within your relationship. Curiosity makes space for playful, pressure-free connection. Curious questions are low stakes, ice-breaking, and naturally engaging, and they create movement without force. Curiosity reduces fear and reactivity. So the more you understand your partner, the less threatened you are by their tone, by their reactions to things. I've found that with us, like the things that used to really throw me because of how you reacted, I now have so much more grace for, because I know who you are and what might be playing into that. You start to then respond instead of react. And the last one is it signals interest, safety, and presence. So asking questions is one of the simplest and most powerful ways to show somebody that they matter to you. Curiosity, asking questions of someone, is an immediate icebreaker. It immediately brings a conversation out there for you. And everybody likes to talk about themselves. Everyone likes to answer things about themselves. So when you can approach something with curiosity, you immediately get them on the right foot and you allow them to feel interesting to you. You allow them to feel important, and you allow them to use their voice, which is really important when you're trying to build connection. It also then helps you understand what might be playing out and why you might be in these patterns that you can't seem to wade through. So just some quick curiosity questions that might help you move forward. I'm going to put most of these on a PDF so you can download them from our website. You could say, what's one memory of us that always makes you smile? You could say, what's something small that makes you feel close to me? There's some random ones. What would we be like if we were a couple in a reality TV show? If we could teleport anywhere for dinner tonight, where would we go? Just light, curious questions that bring back that light. And that's why we like the would you rather questions, for the exact same reason. Some more reflective ones. What's one small change we could make this month that would help us feel more connected? It's not pointing fingers. It's not strapping some kind of label onto your relationship. It's just asking, what can we implement that might make us feel more connected? So I'm going to put this PDF on our website. Implement one or two of these questions. You don't have to do them all. There's like 20 or something. Don't have to do them all. You don't have to change a huge thing. Just implement this little curiosity piece into your relationship. See where you can change things up to start enjoying each other more. Do it during a low stakes time. It's not when you're arguing. It's not when everyone's tense or you're trying to cook dinner. Do it on a walk, while you're folding laundry, while you're driving. We have so many conversations while we're driving. That's a huge one for us. And don't correct or defend. Just receive what they're saying. It's a curious thing. It's a light thing. And we're wanting to work through this so that we can become stronger on the other side. And it will probably feel awkward, but that's okay, because the goal is connection, and bringing culture change doesn't feel comfortable at first, but eventually it does. And if you can push through, that's when you're going to see the biggest change. All right, guys. So that is how to like your partner. As we said, we're going to dive into this more on the following weeks. Feel free to use this as a bit of a challenge, like we will be, to reset some of this culture going on within you, and challenge yourselves to assess the enjoyment that you're having with your partner, because it's a big one.
Yeah.
And it's a game changer.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Catch you next week.
See ya.
Good chat.